The silence in the Grand Galactic Council chamber felt heavy enough to crush planets. Tai Min stood at the central podium, his three-fingered hands trembling as they held the ancient data crystal. Around him, the amphitheater rose in concentric rings, filled with representatives of 1,000 species from across the known galaxy. The normal cacophony of translator devices and heated debates had died away, leaving only the soft hum of the environmental systems. The crystal gleamed with an inner light that seemed to pulse in sync with Ta Min's rapid heartbeats. He had found it buried deep in the forgotten archives of the Centennial Library, where data crystals from the dawn of galactic civilization lay gathering dust. Most contained mundane records, trade agreements, weather patterns, agricultural yields. But this one was different. Ta Min cleared his throat, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic enhancement field. Honorable members of the Council, what I have discovered will change our understanding of galactic law forever. He inserted the crystal into the podium's reader slot. The massive holographic display above the chamber floor flickered to life. Ancient script, dating back over 50,000 years, appeared in glowing blue letters. The automated translation system worked for a moment before rendering the text in modern galactic standard. By decree of the Ancient Ones, the species known as humans, inhabitants of Sol 3, are hereby placed under absolute protection. A wave of murmurs swept through the chamber. Senior Counselor Hanbai rose from her seat in the first ring, her silver ceremonial robes rustling. The ancient Mirth Counselor's scaled skin caught the light as she moved, creating rainbow patterns that reflected her agitation. "This cannot be," she declared, her translator rendering her sibilant speech into clear standard. "We have been monitoring their progress for centuries. They were supposed to be just another developing species." Ta Min's research assistant, a young Valerian named Kai, stepped forward with another data crystal. "There's more," he said, his bioluminescent spots pulsing with excitement. "We found corresponding entries in the historical archives." The holographic display shifted, showing images of primitive Earth, stone tools, cave paintings, early human settlements. But in the background of each image, barely visible unless you knew what to look for, were the distinctive energy signatures of Ancient One observation posts. "They were watching them," Ta Min explained. "The Ancient Ones maintained surveillance of Earth for over 10,000 years before vanishing from the galaxy. This level of attention is unprecedented in any historical record we've found." A Zentarian representative floated forward, their crystalline form refracting light across the chamber. "Why would the most advanced civilization we know of take such interest in primitive primates? And why place them under protection?" "The decree goes further," Ta Min continued, scrolling through the text. "Any interference with human development is strictly forbidden. Any attempt to conquer, subjugate, or impede their progress is punishable by—" He paused, double-checking the translation. "By complete cultural dissolution of the offending species." The chamber erupted in shocked exclamations. Cultural dissolution was the most severe punishment in galactic law, the complete dismantling of a civilization's knowledge, technology, and social structures, reducing them to a pre-industrial state. Hanbai's scales had taken on a pale blue tint of concern. "Are you certain of this translation?" "The implications. We verified it with 3 independent systems," Kai confirmed. "The language is unmistakable. The humans are not just protected, they're untouchable." A junior counselor from the outer rings called down. "But why? What makes them special?" Ta Min manipulated the controls, bringing up more images. Modern Earth cities, their primitive space stations, their first fumbling steps into faster-than-light travel. "That's what we need to find out." The Ancient Ones saw something in humanity that terrified them enough to enact the strongest protection decree in galactic history. Or something that amazed them, Kai added quietly. The chamber fell silent again as the implications sank in. Humanity had been advancing rapidly, moving from industrial technology to spaceflight in mere centuries. Most species took millennia to make similar progress. And now, with this discovery, Their aggressive expansion made terrible sense. They had been protected all along. Every potential competitor or threat had been legally bound to stay away, leaving them free to develop without interference. But the question remained. Han Bai settled back into her seat, her scales now a deep purple of deep thought. We need to establish a research committee immediately. If the humans are truly under Ancient One protection, we need to understand why, before they discover it themselves. Tai Min nodded, but a chill ran through him as he looked at the final line of the decree, one he hadn't shared with the council yet. For they are either our salvation or our doom, and only time will tell which. The Ancient Ones, the most powerful civilization known to exist, had been afraid of humanity's potential. As Tai Min looked at the latest images of Earth's rapidly advancing technology, he wondered if perhaps they had been right to be afraid. The council session continued late into the night, but one thing was clear. Everything they thought they knew about humanity's place in the galaxy had just changed. The question was no longer whether humans would join galactic civilization, but what would happen when they did, and whether the galaxy was ready for what humanity might become. The research center's main hall hummed with activity as streams of data flowed through holographic displays. Research Director Jaiwan moved between the workstations, her eyes scanning the endless flow of information about Earth's history. The discovery of the Protection Decree had turned their quiet historical research facility into the galaxy's most important investigation center overnight. Jaiwan paused at a workstation where her colleague Sung Ho had been working for months, correlating historical records with astronomical data. Dark circles under his eyes betrayed countless sleepless nights spent poring over ancient documents. Another dead end, he muttered, dismissing a holographic display showing early Bronze Age settlements. We keep finding observation posts, but no direct contact records. Jaiwan placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. The Ancient Ones were thorough in their observation. There must be a reason they watched humans so closely. Their research team had scattered archaeological evidence across a dozen worlds, searching for any mention of Earth or humans in Ancient One records. The Protection Decree hadn't come from nowhere. Something had prompted the most advanced civilization in known history to shield a species that had barely mastered stone tools. Director called out one of their junior researchers, Harin, from across the hall. I think I found something interesting in the genetic archives. Jaiwan made her way over, noting the excitement in Harin's voice. The young researcher had been analyzing genetic samples from prehistoric human remains found in various Earth locations. Look at this sequence. Harin pointed to a complex DNA strand rotating in the display. It's not like anything we've seen in other species. The potential for adaptation is extraordinary. Before Jaiwan could respond, Sung Ho's voice cut through the research hall. Director, you need to see this immediately. The urgency in his tone made everyone turn. Jaiwan rushed back to his station. The holographic display showed prehistoric human settlements, but something was different. Overlaid on the images were energy signatures, hundreds of them. Ancient One observation posts, far more numerous than they had initially believed. This can't be right, Jaiwan whispered, checking the data herself. There are more observation posts around a single human settlement than we found for entire civilizations. Sung Ho nodded, his fingers flying over the controls. And look at this pattern. They weren't just watching. They were running experiments. The display shifted, showing energy readings that pulsed in regular patterns. Jaiwan recognized them immediately. They were the signatures of Ancient One testing equipment, devices used to measure potential and capability. They were testing humans, she realized. But testing them for what? Another researcher, Min Jae, called from his station. Director, I think I found a partial answer. Look at these combat simulations they were running. The team gathered around Min Jae's display. It showed complex mathematical models, the kind the Ancient Ones used to predict species development. But these were different. Every simulation showed humans breaking the predicted patterns, developing in ways that should have been impossible. They adapt too quickly, Min Jae explained. The simulations show them overcoming challenges that should have wiped them out. They find solutions that shouldn't exist. Jai-1 felt a chill run down her spine as she looked at the data. The Ancient Ones hadn't just been observing humans. They had been studying them with an intensity that suggested either tremendous fear or incredible hope. "There's more," Sung-Ho added, pulling up another set of readings. The observation posts weren't just passive. They were creating controlled situations, testing human responses to various challenges. The implications were staggering. The Ancient Ones, masters of the galaxy, had turned Earth into a vast laboratory. But why? What were they looking for? Herin's voice trembled as she made a connection. "The genetic adaptability I found. What if it's not natural? What if the Ancient Ones did something to early humans?" The research hall fell silent. The idea that the Ancient Ones might have modified humanity was both terrifying and fascinating. It would explain the protection decree. They would want to preserve their experiment. "No," Jai-1 said finally, studying the patterns more closely. They weren't modifying humans. They were studying something that was already there, something that scared them. She brought up the complete data set, combining all their findings. The observation posts, the genetic studies, the combat simulations, the adaptation tests, they all pointed to one conclusion. The Ancient Ones found something in humanity they had never seen before, she explained. A potential that didn't follow the rules they understood. That's why they were watching so closely. That's why they protected them. Sung-Ho looked up from his station, his face pale. "Director, if you're right, then humanity isn't just another species. There's something entirely new." Jai-1 nodded slowly, watching the data streams continue their endless flow. The Ancient Ones had seen something in humanity that made them enact the strongest protection decree in galactic history. As she looked at the evidence of their intense observation and testing, she wondered if perhaps they had discovered something that even they couldn't fully understand. The research team worked through the night, piecing together more evidence, but one question remained unanswered. What would happen when humanity discovered their true potential? The Ancient Ones had seen it coming. Now, millennia later, the galaxy might not be ready for what they had protected all this time. The massive command bridge of the Carrion flagship, Imperial Dawn, stretched out before Fleet Commander Du Young like a cathedral of war. Holographic displays showed his armada. 500 warships, the pride of the Carrion Empire, arranged in perfect attack formation. "The ancient law is nothing but primitive superstition," Du Young declared, his mandibles clicking in amusement as he studied the tactical display of the Sol system. "These humans are barely out of their cradle. They have no right to the resources in their system." His second in command, Yu Jin, stood rigidly beside him. Unlike her commander, her carapace was dull with worry. "Sir, the Ancient One's decree was very specific about the consequences of interfering with Earth." Du Young waved a clawed hand dismissively. "The Ancient Ones vanished 50,000 years ago. Their laws hold no power now. The Carrion Empire needs those resources, and we will take them." The fleet moved through hyperspace, its engines burning with the distinctive purple fire that marked Carrion technology. Du Young had chosen his moment carefully. Earth's defenses were concentrated around their homeworld. Their colonies on Mars would be helpless. "Exit point near Mars in 30 seconds, the navigation officer announced. Yu Jin tried one last time. "Sir, please, no one has ever violated the protection decree. We don't know what might happen." "What will happen," Du Young said firmly, "is that we will claim this system for the Empire, and I will be remembered as the commander who proved the ancient laws were meaningless." The fleet dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, emerging near Mars. Du Young expected to see primitive mining operations, helpless colonial outposts. Instead, what he saw made his warrior's blood run cold. The humans had been waiting. Multiple contacts. The sensor officer screamed. "They're everywhere." The tactical display exploded with signals. Hidden bases on Mars moons emerged from holographic camouflage. Orbital platforms that had appeared to be simple communication relays transformed into weapon stations, and the supposedly primitive mining ships were suddenly revealing military-grade shields and weapons. "Impossible," Du Young whispered. "Their technology level. They shouldn't have any of this." A transmission cut through their communications, a human voice, speaking perfect Carrion. "Carrion Fleet, you have entered restricted space in violation of galactic law. You will power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded." Yu Jin's mandibles quivered. "They speak our language. They know who we are." "Launch fighters," Du Young ordered. "All ships, battle formations. Show these primitives the might of the Empire." The space around Mars erupted in combat. Carrion fighters streamed from their carriers, their purple drive trails creating a deadly light show against the red planet's surface. But the humans were ready. What happened next would be debated in military academies across the galaxy for centuries. The humans didn't just fight back. They fought in ways that defied conventional military doctrine. Their ships moved in patterns that should have been impossible, using maneuvers that ignored the normal laws of physics. "They're using our own tactics against us," Yu Jin realized with horror. "But improved. Better than we ever developed." The human ships had somehow analyzed Carrion battle strategies and evolved countermeasures in real time. Worse, they were adapting their attacks with each passing moment, learning and improving their techniques mid-battle. "Sir," the weapons officer called out. They're hacking our systems, but we use quantum encryption. It's not possible." Do Young watched in growing terror as his perfect battle plan fell apart. Human ships were smaller, theoretically less advanced, but they moved like water through his formation, striking with devastating precision. "Fall back," he finally ordered. "All ships, emergency retreat." But the humans had anticipated this too. Hidden gravitational nets activated, trapping the Carrion fleet in normal space. Du Young realized with growing horror that this hadn't been a battle, it had been a trap. The humans had known they were coming. "Sir," Yu Jin said quietly, "they're broadcasting on all frequencies, not just to us. To the entire galaxy." The message was simple: let this serve as a reminder. The protection decree stands. Earth is not to be touched. Within hours, the pride of the Carrion Empire had been reduced to floating hulks. Not destroyed. The humans were too clever for that. Instead, each ship had been systematically disabled, their crews captured, their technology thoroughly analyzed. As Do Young sat in a human detention cell later, he finally understood. The Ancient Ones hadn't placed humans under protection to shield them. They had done it to shield the galaxy from them. His empire had just learned the hard way why some laws should never be broken. The incident became known as the Mars Lesson, a stark reminder to the galaxy that humanity was not to be underestimated. The humans hadn't just defeated a superior force. They had done it so thoroughly, so efficiently, that it seemed impossible they had ever been considered primitive at all. And in research facilities across the galaxy, scientists began to wonder, what else were humans capable of? What had the Ancient Ones seen in them that made such protection necessary? The answers, they would soon learn, were more terrifying than anyone could have imagined. The council chamber was deathly quiet as senior analyst Minsu's hands trembled, scattering holographic data points across the display. 3 weeks had passed since the Carrion incident at Mars, and what she had discovered defied everything they thought they knew about technological advancement. "Distinguished council members," she began, her voice steady despite her shaking hands. "What I'm about to show you will fundamentally change our understanding of human capabilities." The display shifted to show the wreckage of a Carrion warship. Then, beside it, appeared a human vessel constructed after the battle. The designs were nearly identical, but the human version showed significant improvements. "They didn't just defeat the Carrion fleet," Minsu explained. "They learned from it. In 3 weeks, they have not only reverse-engineered Carrion technology, but improved upon it in ways that took our best engineers centuries to conceive." Her colleague, Jayan, stepped forward. adding visual data from human research facilities. Their adaptability isn't just biological, it's psychological. They embrace change at a rate that should be impossible. Look at this. The display showed human scientists excitedly taking apart carrion technology, their discussions animated, their progress unprecedented. Where other species would approach alien technology with caution and reverence, humans attacked it with enthusiasm and curiosity. They don't think like us, Min Su continued, bringing up comparative data. Where we see limitations, they see challenges. Where we accept boundaries, they push through them. The carrion quantum encryption system was considered unbreakable. Humans didn't just break it. They fundamentally reimagined how it worked. A council member interrupted, their translator struggling to convey their disbelief. How is this possible? Their civilization is barely 1,000 years old. Jain activated another display, showing human historical data. That's exactly what makes them different. Look at their development curve. Most species take millennia to advance from simple tools to spaceflight. Humans did it in centuries. And now we know why. The display shifted to show human learning patterns. They don't learn linearly, Min Su explained. They learn exponentially. Each discovery doesn't just add to their knowledge, it multiplies it. They take separate concepts and combine them in ways that shouldn't occur to any rational species. The evidence was undeniable. Footage showed human engineers combining carrion power systems with their own primitive fusion technology, creating hybrid systems that exceeded both. They hadn't just copied, they had innovated. But the most concerning aspect, Min Su continued, her voice dropping, is their response to failure. When their experiments fail, they don't retreat. They become more determined. Each failure is treated as data, not defeat. The council chamber erupted in murmurs as she showed footage of human test facilities. Failed experiments that would have discouraged other species for decades just made humans try harder, think differently, push further. They have already modified and improved the carrion shield technology, Jain reported. Their version uses 30% less energy and provides 40% more protection. It's not just advancement, it's evolution at a technological level. An elder council member rose, their ancient form trembling. Now we understand why the Ancient Ones protected them. They're not just another species. They're a force of nature. Min Su nodded gravely. The Ancient Ones must have seen this potential. Humans don't just adapt to their environment. They make their environment adapt to them. They don't accept the impossible. They challenge it, break it, rebuild it. The display showed more human innovations, each more impressive than the last. They had taken captured carrion medical technology and were already developing applications the carrions had never considered. Their weapons research had gone in directions that defied conventional physics. They solve problems differently, Jain explained. Where we see a wall, they see 1,000,000 possibilities. Go through it, go around it, go over it, remove it entirely, or change the nature of walls themselves. Their creativity isn't just unusual, it's revolutionary. Min Su brought up her final data set, and they share knowledge at an unprecedented rate. When one human makes a discovery, they don't hoard it. They spread it, build on it, challenge others to improve it. Their collective intelligence grows exponentially. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Ancient Ones hadn't placed humans under protection out of benevolence. They had done it because they recognized what humanity might become. We have two choices, Min Su concluded. We can fear them, try to contain them, and likely fail as the carrions did. Or we can try to understand them, learn from them, and hope they're as capable of friendship as they are of innovation. As the council debated long into the night, Min Su and Jain shared a knowing look. The galaxy was about to change, and humanity would be the catalyst. The Ancient Ones had seen it coming millennia ago. Now the rest of the galaxy would have to adapt, or be left behind by a species that didn't just break boundaries, but refused to acknowledge they existed at all. The Emergency Council session convened in the ancient Hall of Records, where historical researcher De Hyun stood before the most powerful beings in the galaxy. The recent Carrion incident had triggered an unprecedented investigation into human history, and what she had discovered kept her awake for days. Honored council members, De Hyun began, her voice echoing through the vast chamber. What I'm about to show you isn't just concerning. It's terrifying. She activated the central holographic display, revealing a timeline of human advancement. The display lit up with markers of human achievement, each point burning bright against the darkness of space. Look at their progression, she said, highlighting key moments. From first flight to space travel in less than 70 years. From basic computing to quantum manipulation in less than a century. Every other species took at least 5 times longer. Her partner, Kita, stepped forward, adding depth to the presentation. We've analyzed their development pattern against every known species in our records. The results are unprecedented. The timeline expanded, showing parallel developments of other civilizations. The contrast was stark. Where other species took careful, measured steps forward, humanity's progress looked like an explosion. This isn't normal advancement, De Hyun explained, zooming in on specific periods. Look at their response to challenges. World War I, a devastating conflict that should have set them back decades. Instead, it accelerated their development. They went from primitive propeller aircraft to jet engines in 6 years. The council members shifted uncomfortably as she continued. Their Manhattan Project. They went from theoretical physics to practical nuclear applications in under 4 years. The space race. From suborbital flights to walking on their moon in just 8 years. Keita highlighted another section of the timeline. And look at their information age. From basic electronic computers to global networks in 30 years. From simple mobile devices to neural interfaces in less than 4 decades. A council member interrupted, their crystalline form vibrating with concern. But surely they must have plateaued by now. De Hyun shook her head gravely. No. After the Carrion incident, their progression has become even steeper. They're not just learning. They're learning how to learn better. The display shifted to show recent human achievements. Their adaptation of Carrion technology wasn't just impressive, it was impossible by normal standards. They had taken alien concepts and not just understood them, but improved them, often in ways the original inventors hadn't considered. And this is why the Ancient Ones protected them, Kite added, pulling up another display. Not to shield humans, but to shield us from them. They saw this pattern 50,000 years ago, in primitive humans who had barely mastered fire. De Hyun highlighted specific points in early human history. Look at these markers. The Ancient Ones documented human problem-solving abilities that defied their models. They watched humans master fire, develop complex tools, create art, and build societies in timeframes that shouldn't have been possible. The presentation showed Ancient One observation data, revealing patterns that had gone unnoticed until now. Every time humans faced a limitation, they didn't just overcome it, they transformed it into an advantage. Their response to climate change during the Ice Age, De Hyun pointed out, other species would have migrated or died out. Humans invented new tools, new hunting techniques, new social structures. They didn't just survive, they thrived. Keita added more recent data. Now look at their response to the digital age. Most species take centuries to adapt to such fundamental changes. Humans reorganize their entire civilization in decades. Their children are born understanding concepts that their grandparents couldn't have imagined. The council chamber was utterly silent now as De Hyun reached her conclusion. The Ancient Ones weren't being kind when they protected humanity. They were being prudent. They recognized a pattern that we're only now beginning to understand. She showed one final display, a projection of human advancement over the next century. The curve went nearly vertical. This isn't just advancement, she explained. This is transformation. Every other species follows predictable patterns of development. Humans don't just break the patterns, they'd rewrite them. Keita stepped forward with the final piece of evidence. We found this in the Ancient One records. A warning, written in their most serious encryption. They do not see boundaries as we do. To them, the impossible is merely unopposed. They do not evolve to suit their environment. They evolve their environment to suit them. As the presentation concluded, the council faced a stark reality. The Ancient Ones, in their wisdom, had seen what humanity would become. They had placed them under protection, not out of benevolence, but out of a deep understanding that humanity represented something entirely new in the galaxy. Da Hyun's final words hung in the air. We're not dealing with just another species. We're watching the emergence of something that could change the fundamental nature of galactic civilization. The question isn't whether we should contain them. It's whether we can survive what they're becoming. The ancient message crystal pulsed with a soft blue light in archaeologist Hyunwoo's hands as he stood before the emergency council. After months of careful translation and analysis, the crystal had finally yielded its secrets, and they were more shocking than anyone had imagined. What I'm about to share will change everything we thought we knew about the Ancient Ones and humanity. Hyunwoo began, his voice steady despite the weight of his discovery. The crystal projector hummed to life, filling the chamber with holographic text written in the flowing script of the Ancient Ones. This isn't just another protection decree, he continued. It's a warning, left by the last High Observer of Earth before the Ancient Ones disappeared. The projection shifted, showing primitive Earth landscapes from 50,000 years ago. The Ancient Ones found something in early humans that defied their understanding of life itself. Hyunwoo explained, highlighting specific passages. They weren't studying humans out of curiosity. They were studying them out of fear. The crystal revealed scenes of early human settlements. The Ancient Ones had watched as primitive humans faced challenges that should have wiped them out. Instead, humans had not just survived. They had turned those challenges into advantages. Look at this observation. Hyunwoo pointed to a specific recording. A group of humans encountered a natural barrier, a wide river they couldn't cross. Most species would have either given up or found another path. These humans built bridges. They didn't accept the limitation. They removed it entirely. The council chamber was utterly silent as he continued. But that's not what terrified the Ancient Ones. What scared them was how quickly humans shared and improved their innovations. One group's solution became everyone's solution, and then they made it better. Hyunwoo activated another section of the crystal. The Ancient Ones had rules about species development, mathematical constants that governed how quickly a civilization could advance. Humans broke every single one of them. The projection showed more scenes. Humans mastering fire, developing tools, creating art, building increasingly complex societies. But it was the speed of these developments that was impossible. Where other species took thousands of generations to make similar advances, humans did it in mere hundreds. They're not just another species, Hyunwoo explained to the emergency council, his voice filled with both awe and trepidation. They're an anomaly. The only species we've ever encountered that can break established universal constants through sheer determination. The crystal revealed the Ancient One's most disturbing discovery. Humans didn't just adapt to their environment. They refused to accept environmental limitations at all. If something was impossible, they didn't give up. They found ways to make it possible. The Ancient Ones discovered something else. Hyunwoo continued, showing new data. Humans don't just pass on physical traits through genetics. They pass on ideas, improvements, innovations. Their evolution isn't just biological. It's cultural, technological, and it moves at impossible speeds. A council member interrupted, their voice shaking. But why protect them? If they were so dangerous, why not eliminate the threat? Hyunwoo activated the final message on the crystal. The chamber filled with the actual voice of an Ancient One, speaking for the first time in 50,000 years. We cannot destroy them, for they represent something unique in the universe. A species that refuses to accept limitations. To destroy them would be to destroy the greatest experiment in universal history. but neither can we allow them to develop unchecked. Therefore, we place them under protection, not to shield them, but to give the galaxy time to prepare for what they will become. The message continued, revealing the Ancient One's final prediction. They will either transcend all known boundaries of science and existence, or they will destroy themselves trying. There is no middle ground with humans. They cannot be contained, cannot be controlled, cannot be limited. They must either be accepted as they are or avoided entirely. Hyunwoo concluded his presentation with the crystal's final warning. We protect them not out of kindness, but out of necessity. For in them, we see the power to either elevate all species to new heights or to unravel the very fabric of reality in their endless quest to overcome every limitation they encounter. The Emergency Council sat in stunned silence as the implications sank in. The Ancient Ones, the most advanced civilization known to exist, had looked at primitive humans and seen something that terrified them. A species that didn't just push boundaries, but refused to acknowledge they existed at all. The protection decree wasn't about keeping humanity safe. Hyunwoo said finally. It was about giving the rest of us time to prepare for what humanity would become. The Ancient Ones saw what was coming. Now we have to decide how to face it. The crystal's light faded, but its message would echo through the galaxy forever. Humanity wasn't just another species to be studied or controlled. They were a force of nature that could either lift the galaxy to unprecedented heights or change it in ways no one could predict. The United Earth Council chamber was packed to capacity, its ancient marble walls witnessing the most significant diplomatic event in human history. Ambassador Jinho stood at the central podium, his ceremonial robes reflecting the light from Earth's setting sun that streamed through the tall windows. Before him sat representatives from every human nation and colony, their faces a mix of anticipation and disbelief. Behind him, the holographic images of the Galactic Council members floated, their various forms creating an otherworldly backdrop to this historic moment. People of Earth, Jinho began, his voice steady despite the weight of his message. For centuries, you have looked to the stars and wondered if you were alone. You have pushed boundaries, broken barriers, and achieved what other species thought impossible. Today, I am here to tell you why. The chamber fell silent as he activated a holographic display, showing the ancient protection decree in its original form. This law was enacted 50,000 years ago, when your ancestors were still learning to control fire. The most advanced civilization this galaxy has ever known looked at your primitive species and saw something that both amazed and terrified them. Jinho gestured to the timeline showing human advancement. Look at your own history. In less than 500 years, you went from believing the Earth was flat to walking on your moon. In less than a century, you progressed from basic flight to faster-than-light travel. When the Carrion Empire tried to invade, you didn't just defeat them. You absorbed their technology and improved it within weeks. The human representatives shifted in their seats, many beginning to understand the implications of what they were hearing. Jinho continued, his voice growing stronger. You were never meant to be contained, he explained. The law wasn't a shield. It was a quarantine. Not to protect you from us, but because the Ancient Ones recognized what you would become. They saw in your primitive ancestors what we see now, a species that doesn't just adapt to the universe, but makes the universe adapt to them. The chamber erupted in murmurs as Jinho revealed more. Every other species accepts limitations. They work within established boundaries. Humans, you see boundaries as challenges. When something is impossible, you don't accept it. You change the definition of possible. He showed footage from human research facilities, where scientists were already improving upon alien technology in ways its original creators hadn't imagined. Your response to the Carrion incident proved everything the Ancient Ones predicted. You didn't just defend yourselves. You evolved. You grew stronger. You turned an attack into an opportunity for advancement. A human representative stood up, her voice cutting through the chamber. But why tell us this now? Why reveal the protection decree after all this time? Jinho's expression grew serious. Because you've reached a point where hiding it would do more harm than good. Your development has accelerated beyond all predicted models. You're not just advancing. You're changing the fundamental nature of advancement itself. He activated one final display, showing the galaxy in its entirety. The Ancient Ones left us a choice. We could either try to contain you, which they predicted would be impossible, or we could embrace what you might become. Today, the Galactic Council has chosen the latter. The holographic council members nodded in agreement as Jinho delivered the final part of his message. From this day forward, humanity is recognized as a full member of the galactic community, not because you've earned it through technological advancement, but because you represent something unique in the universe, a species that refuses to accept that anything is truly impossible. The chamber burst into applause, but Jinho raised his hand for silence. However, with this recognition comes a warning. Your potential is unlimited, but so is your responsibility. The Ancient Ones saw in you the power to either elevate all species to new heights or to unravel the very fabric of reality in your endless quest for advancement. As the sun set outside the chamber windows, Jinho concluded his historic address. The galaxy isn't just recognizing your status, it's acknowledging what you've always been. A force of nature that cannot be contained, only channeled. The question now is not what you will become, but what you will choose to do with your unique place in the universe. The Earth Council chamber sat in stunned silence as the implications sank in. Humanity had never been alone, never been unprotected. They had been given time to develop, to grow, to become what the Ancient Ones had seen in their primitive ancestors, a species that didn't just dream of impossible things, but made them possible through sheer determination. The new era had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.